we've allowed the three biggest labels in the world to grow so vast and to own so many copyrights that they basically have controlling power over the PROs, controlling power over the DSPs, controlling power in all of these situations. I mean, how do you negotiate with Universal Music? They own 1/3 of all recorded music that's ever been made. How do you negotiate with that?
Payne, we're good to go, man. We're live streaming.
Okay, what's going down, everyone? This is the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast, episode number 44. I did know that seconds ago. I swear everyone can attest to that. We are joined by Dame. We are joined also by a very special guest by the name of Tom Gray. I'll allow him to introduce himself, but he has a nice British accent, so trust and believe everything he says. That's the voice of authority. But beyond just the accent, he's in an amazing position of experience and knowledge, and so we're really pleased to have him on today's episode to talk about something that really I would love to only talk about with people with this level of experience and knowledge in the music business, specifically pertaining to publishing. How are you feeling? So I don't know what time it is over there in the UK, but I don't think it's that early.
It's 5:10 in the afternoon. It's not so bad. I'm all good. I'm relaxed. I've been sitting in the garden sunning myself. It's all good.
Nice.
This is the one time when I think the UK is actually sunnier than the States, because it's gray out here.
Yeah, man. To be fair, if you haven't got a garden at the moment and you're locked indoors, it's pretty rough. My neighbors stare at me with daggers in their eyes, when I'm sitting in the garden.
Let them do some landscaping for you and you kill two birds with one stone.
Payne is speaking from a Wisconsin perspective. I'm in Cali. We get sun pretty regularly. So we're spoiled. But anyway, Tom, you want to give us a little bit about your background before we jump into this heated debate? Not a heated debate, but into your tweet that went viral, kind of viral.
Sure. Shall I explain who I am first? I think, so I've been in the music business for 25 years, and I was in a pretty successful band that toured the world for many years. Sold a couple of million records, did all of that kind of thing. And then got a little older, stopped touring so much, got really interested in scoring TV and film and stuff, got into that quite a lot of theatre work. So I've kind of done all of it on some level. And then I've always had a sort of an interest in politics and an interest in policy and stuff like that, which is, it's a niche interest, but I've always been interested in it. And I thought, well, there can't be many guys who've got this much experience and understand the sort of wider world like I do. So I should probably step up. And, a few years ago, I got myself elected onto the board of PRS for Music, which is the equivalent of ASCAP. In the UK, and became a board member there. I also represent an organization called the Ivers Academy, which is like an association of songwriters and composers. And I'm a member of the Musicians Union, and I work with them. And I'm kind of across also an organization called the Featured Artists Coalition, who are a sort of association of featured artists as well. So I'm kind of across everything in a weird sort of way, because I'm a writer, I'm an artist, I was a performer, a non-featured performer, and a featured artist. So I've had to figure out the rights landscape from every position within it, Mm-hmm. And we've woken up in this brave new world where everything is gone except for streaming, right? That's the only dependable way of making money now. So that thought just kept about a month ago. It was just sticking with me, and I was thinking, streaming has always been bad on the whole in terms of how it pays out for most people. Some people do great out of it. If you own your own label and you do your own marketing and you completely own that whole piece, you are set if you've got a following. But non-featured artists get nothing. Writers get close to nothing. And if there's multiple writers, they get a little tiny bit of nothing. Which is even commoner on especially on urban and pop stuff. It's like there's often like 5-10 writers. I mean, and they're getting 1% of, God. Anyway, so I started ranting on the internet as I am wont to do, and one of these rants about how to fix things or how to start thinking about fixing things just blew up in my face, really. And before I knew it, it had 1 million or so impressions and whatnot,
Right. So yeah, I mean, I appreciate your perspective because, I used to run my own label. It was a hip hop label. And we never had songwriters that weren't the artists, right? So I never kind of viewed things from a songwriter perspective, like a standalone songwriter perspective. The artists that made the music, they typically wrote the songs as well. So I never looked at it. So it's not that this is the first time I've tried to look at it from a songwriter perspective, but when you look at streaming just from a songwriter perspective, now I kind of see your point, because other times I kind of play devil's advocate because I know so many independent artists that are winning on streaming. Mm-hmm. So it's like I think that streaming is a net good thing. But obviously a lot of people agree with your tweet, and you kind of are suggesting that royalty rates increase and also that they split differently, right?
Yeah. So I want to grow the pie, right? And some shares will stay the same within that grown pie. So, label money should stay pretty much the same, but that money, that the outward growth would go to more to writers, and for the first time, I think it'd be very important to give money to non-featured artists, like players. Like it seems like an ethical thing to me. If there's a guy playing guitar on your record, why is there not a little stream of money that goes into his back pocket? Why isn't there? It doesn't seem like a big ask. Everyone else is making money off the back end of their work. Why are those guys not? Why is the woman playing your drum kit not getting paid? Why is, it's a funny thing for me. I know that in America you have more of a culture of buyout, and we don't have that as much. We do not have kind of corporate authorship, if you like. It's more like everyone tends to get commissioned and just work, and the musicians union over here protect people so that they keep getting paid and stuff. But I mean, it is a question of perspective in terms of whether you're doing well out of it. 'Cause I completely accept that a lot of people are doing fine out of streaming, but there's whole sectors of this who are doing really badly, and that's basically anyone in the catalog. So anyone with a historic recording contract, that, especially going back any distance, especially pre-2001, they're completely screwed by streaming, because, like you say, they're probably writers as well, but to the writing, the only money that most of their money is trapped in major label deals and things like that they were forced into, and because there wasn't a different kind of deal to a standard record deal back then, right? So you couldn't really own it. A little bit, maybe. So those people are trapped in those deals are never going to get any money out of their body of work unless we increase the writing percentage. And then you have the writers and the sort of ecosystem of people who work around it, the producers, the writers, the side people, I'm just trying to come up with a way of getting a very successful thing to basically pay out for the whole sphere, for the whole gamut of creators, not just the person whose name's written on the label.
Right. So let me pause there, because I think you brought up a really important side conversation. And I think at one point when I was weighing the positives of streaming, I said something that upon reflection was pretty ignorant, which was that streaming can be seen as positive because it's rejuvenating back catalogs and generating income that wasn't there previously, because previously you would buy an album and that's the only income you give to the artist. But now every time you consume a track, someone's getting paid. Well, the issue that comes to mind when we talk about back catalogs is the fact that, like you said, pre-2001 record contracts existed and were signed before streaming was even a thought. Sound exchange to collect non-interactive streaming royalties wasn't established until 2003, for example. So a lot of these catalogs, and not even a lot of these catalogs, all of these catalogs and all of these agreements that were signed before streaming was even a factor don't include language that stipulates what artists are getting paid from the streaming, because that technology wasn't there. So that's a major problem, right? Because what's happening to those artists whose catalogs are being streamed and the labels are taking their money, but there's really no agreement that specifically addresses that.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's exactly it. You've said it. That is the piece. There isn't anything else there.
But why are they taking it? I mean, they found some slick way to intercept that money and kind of retrofit it to the old way, even though it's completely new, right?
Yeah, but major label accounting is a dark art, man. I mean, it's not, let's be wise to that for a start. I mean, plus finding out what the numbers are via a record company, that's hard enough. I mean, then you've got to have enough money in your pocket to, like, if you don't believe them, to forensically audit them. And that's, maybe you have no money for that. There's an awful lot here. And being able to afford a lawyer to take them on or re-look at the contracts. I mean, there is a lot that can be done. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying people are helpless in this. That's just not the case. I just think that when we look at the whole model, we have to consider everybody, right? I mean, it's not. I mean, maybe that's partly my political viewpoint. I'm an everybody kind of a person. So it's you're right. You've basically nailed it. The other thing you've got to think about, there's a sort of other little detail to it that kind of makes it interesting, which you think about, say, for instance, Prince in 1985 would put out a song, right? And it would be a huge hit. And he would get 6 months before that song was covered, recorded, and able for release again, because the releasing process would take months and months to record a song, print it, get it, redistribute it, get it in the shops. So his song, his original version, he could be exploited for a clean amount of time. Now, I don't know, Taylor Swift or whatever records a pop song. The next day, there will be acoustic versions of that song played by Joe Bloggs in his bedroom. And when people go on the site, like, he's going to get the master rights from that song, from them listening to it straight away, right? So you're diminishing the value of the song massively. You're in a situation where, you go off and you record a song by, like, Al Green or something tomorrow, and you play it. Al Green is going to make less money than you, right?
Right.
All the time. Right. And I just don't reckon that, on balance, that's a kind of a weird skew, isn't it? That you can cash in on. There's this whole cachet and value that you can excavate out of the quality of the song without ever giving back to the song.
Right. No, it's definitely not a fair system as is. Have you, and this may not be something that you have done, but have you calculated kind of like what percentage increase Spotify would have to pay out to make it a more equitable system?
I think it's only 25%. I think it's only 25%. It's tiny because, the splits are such that I think the master gets 57% at the moment. the platform gets 30%, the master gets 57%, and the song, both mechanical and performance, gets 13%.
Mm-hmm.
And if you expand the whole thing by 25%, the master 57% becomes 47%,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
it's keeping the same, like.
Yeah. So no one loses anything. Okay. Nobody loses any money. Everybody who's where they're at continues to be where they're at, mm-hmm. right? It's just saying, and I don't think we should be afraid of going to the consumer. This isn't about the labels. This is especially not about the platforms and, the DSPs. We need this money for the creators, to make this system right. And you say to a music fan or a music listener, hey, your monthly bill is going from $10 to $12.50, so that we can do this, so that songwriters can live. Doesn't seem like a big step to me. I mean, maybe I'm insane, but you tell me what you think.
No, I don't think you're insane at all. Again, from my perspective, kind of like dealing with rappers, on the whole, I just think that there are too many artists that believe they should make a living through streaming that haven't put in the real work. Like some artists are gonna hear this and be like, yeah, like I agree, they gotta pay us, but they don't have, no matter, even if you increased it 25%, even if you quadrupled the rates, they still wouldn't have, enough to live. So at what point, like,
I'm not arguing against the meritocracy. You know what I mean? The truth is always people going to be better than other people. This is not about leveling the playing field and giving money to people whose music is awful. Right. That's not what we're talking about at all. And people shouldn't be mistaken about that. If you haven't developed an audience and you haven't managed to find people, and your music just doesn't find a home with listeners, chances are you're never going to have a career, right?
Right.
That's life, right? But what I'm talking about is I have friends who have multi-million streams as songwriters, who are like top line writers who get like a third of the writing or whatever, who can't make rent. Right. And we just need to understand that. So, and the thing is, this is the great thing. If we do what I'm saying, people who are the artists, writers, and the label are going to make a whole lot more money too. So it's a total win-win. It's what's so funny about it is the way that the DSPs pretend that it's so price sensitive, when I don't think it is price sensitive, when you're giving the consumer a direct relationship with the creator and saying this price increase is about us doing the thing that we pretend to be, which is one with the creators. Like, we believe in the writers and the makers, which is Spotify are constantly trying to pretend they are, but it's hard to believe when you look at the kind of shit they pull in the courts. So
right, yeah. I'm surprised public opinion hasn't changed based on those high profile court disputes. But so let's make this real. Do me a favor. Can you break down those percentages again with regard to who's getting what piece? Because I think you said the master is getting 57. Did you say?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so the master's. My bad. Go ahead.
No. That's of the money that Spotify receives. 30% goes straight in their pocket. 57% gets distributed as the master, and that will be based on, that could be just you if you're the artist label. That could be, but in major deals, it would be 80-20 against the artist, or 70-30 in a lot of better deals these days. And then 13% goes to the song, and that is both mechanical rights, the reproduction rights, even though where's the reproduction in streaming, and half of it goes to the performance, your ASCAP, your SASM, your BMI, performance right.
So the issue here then is that of that, the majority is controlled by the label. The master is controlled by the label, and the mechanical is something that most writers can't even access. So as a result, the only real percentage in practical terms is that writer's share, and that happens to be the smallest portion of that overall pie, right? It's tiny,
yeah. I mean, in the UK, mechanicals are accessed. I mean, we have MCPS who collect, and I'll publish. If you have a publisher, you should be getting the same kind of rates as you get in your performance split. So, I mean, I couldn't speak expertly about the American situation. I would feel very uncomfortable talking about that. But you know, that 13% is usually going to fall about 80-20 in the favor of a writer. So that's about 10% of the stream will go to the writer. But obviously, as you know, there's usually multiple writers, because, you know, people who put down beats, people who do, you know, it gets split up all kinds of ways. So you can end up, even if you write the greatest hit in the world, you wrote it, you wrote the melody or whatever. You only got 2% on 0.009, which is the highest streaming rate in the world at the moment, right? Which is Amazon, but which is just an accident that it's the highest at the moment, because if more people stream from Amazon, the price of the rate on streaming will go down because there's more people streaming, because they only have a limited amount of money, and that's the problem with the market. And so we have to be careful with streaming as well, because we have to think ahead. We have to go, you know what? If this becomes more and more popular, actually we're going to, and more and more people make music, the amount we make is going to go down and down and down and down. Yeah, because that's a bit of a mind-blowing kind of realization when you get there. But you're like, wait a minute. So the consumer never pays more, but the amount of music grows, and the number of people, the amount of streams, it grows. And then you start doing the maths, and there is kind of you look at Spotify as the best example. Spotify payment rates have gone down nearly every single quarter since it started, right? And why is that? It's because Spotify is more and more popular. Mm-hmm. And it's which is why we need to sort of do some structural things to make sure enough money is getting through. And it may not be that the kind of splits that I'm talking about happen in the sort of standard ways that we think about. I think I talked about in my, we might not be able to get them to split it into quarters neatly or whatever. And it's going to be a really, really tough negotiation, because the major labels really don't want anything to change. They never do. There's so much inertia in that business, and generally they are incredibly lazy, which is a really problematic thing for an industry. If you think that these companies have developed into basically tech companies, into data aggregation companies, they ought to be fleet of foot, but they do not change. Sorry, I'm going off on a completely.
Well, no, so let me ask this then. So you obviously have a concern with the fact that streaming is in part considered a mechanical reproduction, and rightfully so. It doesn't make any sense that a stream, which is just someone playing something on demand without any physical product, why that's considered demand,
right?
Yeah, where's the reproduction?
Right. So there is no reproduction, but I guess why is it so convoluted? Why do we even throw that in? It seems to me, as someone who's a layman, I've never worked for a PRO. It seems to me that should just be a purely performance royalty.
Yeah. In a sort of ideal world, that's what it would be. But the problem is that, if we boil it down in many ways, why it's hard to structurally change anything in the recording industry is because we've allowed the three biggest labels in the world to grow so vast and to own so many copyrights that they basically have controlling power over the PROs controlling power over the DSPs, controlling power in all of these situations. I mean, how do you negotiate with Universal Music? They own 1/3 of all recorded music that's ever been made. How do you negotiate with that? I mean, it's ridiculous that that competition authorities and, you know, antitrust and everything has allowed it to get to this situation, but it's where we are. And, you know, those same companies that own the biggest labels own the biggest publishers. And, you know, they like the mechanical. Yeah. Why do they like the mechanical? Because it doesn't come through a PRO, you know, it comes through their PROs, not our PROs, right? Wow. And, you know, they like their accounting system. You know, I'm not saying that they, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of very good publishers out there, but I just think that sometimes you have to look at the big picture and kind of go, well, we know what the playing field really looks like. We know where the power is. Why don't things change? Why are we stuck with these utterly outmoded, like, rights sitting in the middle of and as soon as you figure it out, you're like, oh, right, it's them again. It's just them again. Yeah.
I mean, I think that it's primarily the record labels, but I would imagine that Spotify is going to, you know, they push back as well. I haven't looked at their financials recently, but, you know, they claim to have not made a profit like forever. I'm not sure if they've actually turned a profit on their financial statements or not. So them paying any more of anything, I'm sure they're going to push back. And if you're saying it comes with a price increase, like you said before, you know, they're going to say that customers are price sensitive. They only want to pay $9.99. But they've also, so recently, as yesterday, they put the little donation link on artist profiles. And I made a video about this today and posted it on the MEC page.
I'm outraged by it.
Do you think, I mean, I guess this kind of speaks to the illusion again that they're for the artist. But do you think like just putting that in there is going to take some pressure off them to increase rates?
No, God, no. Are you kidding me? I mean, if you wanted to really point out the fact that your system doesn't properly pay artists, here's put a little hat next to their name saying, "Please chuck some money in here. Why don't you?" I mean, come on. It's the most tacit acceptance of the fact that they know that they aren't handing out enough money, and that a lot of the system, you know, you got to remember, we're musicians and writers working in a much smaller market than you guys, right? Much smaller market. You are the biggest music market in the world, right? We are not even 1/5 of the size of you. So the kind of value that we can generate within our system is quite a lot smaller, unless we go global, which, you know, a lot of UK artists do, like, you know, Ed Sheeran or whoever. But most of us stay within our domestic market, right? That's just a cultural thing that always usually happens, right? And so the amount of value, the total value, isn't anything like the American market, right? And that's really important to understand at the beginning, as part of this. So we don't have as many artists making as much money as you guys do, simply because of the mathematics of it, you know. I mean, the spread might be the same, right? The spread might be exactly the same. The graph of how much is being earned across the whole piece, but the sheer numbers of people who are doing really well will be obviously 5 times as high in America.
Right.
Yeah, Spotify popping that on there to us is a bit like, you guys know, that we are in trouble here. Most of us, half of us, you know, have been supplement with our income with live, you know, and performance, and that's gone, right? And now here's the next thing that's going to happen is all the PRO money is going to go, because, you know, we have, you know, all the performance money from bars and clubs and hairdressers and barbershops and whatever, where our music gets played. I've already heard from the head of the guy who collects the neighboring right over here, they think they might get hit to the tune of 90%, right?
Yeah, that's happening with ASCAP. They've already made that announcement. And
yeah, so exactly. You see anything like that, and our PRO checks disappear. We haven't got live income anymore, and it's like streaming. Hello, and there's a guy saying, "Oh," and the thing that really annoyed me was they said, "Oh, and artists can give this to charity if they want." You know, if they put the sort of moral onus on us to give that money to an even better cause than stupid musicians, right? It's like, what a game are you playing? I mean, to be perfectly frank, I think that the platforms do want change. I think that they can't. They tried to do. Spotify tried to do direct artist deals, but they were shut down by the major labels. That was last year. So yeah, I think there's more appetite for fixing this problem than there isn't. You know, I think nobody likes work. Nobody, it's going to be work, but when it comes down to the basics of like, do you think this is how it should be? It's hard to get anybody to say, yeah, that's a beautifully creative. What a gorgeous machine we have here, guys. It's a bodge on a bodge on a bodge. It's a messy, stupid system that can really, really enrich people, but can also fail certain skills massively.
Now, I wasn't suggesting that the donation option is a solution, but I'm sure it's I think it is going to help a lot of artists. I think that feature should have been there from day one. It should continue to be there. But also, I think it's a great PR play for Spotify to kind of continue to muddy the waters, because most people don't really know, what we're talking about today and the economics behind streaming.
So my main piece of what I'm doing, the main story for me is educating people. That's the main thing. Like this campaign, it's not the chances of me succeeding, or the people I work with, the Ivers Academy and the MU, managing to push forward this so that we get a change, the chances are practically nil. But if we can inform people about how their rights work and what the numbers look like and how it's divided, and what the legal position is, so that they can look at their own contracts and figure out where the hell they're at, that's a massive win anyway, right? So and trying to, there's so much technical jargon and acronyms and stuff in music that's just it makes me, I look at it and I want to just ignore it. I can't, the young musicians or whatever coming into it going, what is this? How am I supposed to ever figure this out? We really need to simplify and straight talk about how this all works. And I know that's why I'm here.
Yeah. So what would you say is the best strategy for us as people who kind of know the system as much as I guess we can, given how convoluted it is, to educate new generations or any artists? I mean, I think the majority of musicians and songwriters don't know most of this stuff. What strategy do we use to make it accessible and actually make it accessible to the point where people want to learn this stuff? I feel like, and I don't blame them, I feel like artists shut down the second the acronyms start coming in. What the hell is MRI? What the hell is PRO? What's PRS? What's non-interactive? What's a mechanical? What's HFA? It's too much.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
We're in a position to educate. What do we do?
I would push back on it's too much. Like, any industry is gonna have like a lot of stuff to learn. Sure, we can simplify it to some extent, but we definitely, and this is why the Music Entrepreneur Club exists, right? So, because most artists aren't like learning on a daily basis, and we definitely should simplify it. But every industry is gonna have some level of education, to do that profession. So we can't take the onus completely off, artists and producers to learn.
We shouldn't, but we should think about creating resources for them that at least what always bothers me is, and I've been thinking about this quite a lot, is that you get to a certain place and then it starts getting too, it gets too academic, it gets too complicated. And I always feel like there ought to be resources where you can go to the depth that you want to go, right? So you can dig to the point where it's like, oh, I now know what the mechanical right is. I know what, the performance right is. I know what the master right is. I know what the DSPs are charging. I know, those very simple kind of things, and then how they break down. And so that you can just you don't have to go any deeper, but if you want to go deeper, you can. And I think that technology probably allows that. And we need to be creating those kinds of things where I think creators really need tools to understand that and not be hearing from a manager, because, I always call them damages. The stuff they'll tell you is not necessarily going to help you, right? So it's about empowerment. It's about enfranchising people with information and making that information as digestible as possible. But of course, you're not going to get rid of the complexity. Under the hood, there's always going to be a minefield. I mean, you look at them. The licensing market is one of the most complicated things in the world. It's unbelievable. So, yeah, I mean, you get my idea. What I'm talking about, it's make stuff for people, like put it in black and white, tell them, do what you're doing. I mean, what you're doing is right. You're already on the path, right? What you're doing with this club is exactly the thing. Trying to get people to think about, because once you think about it, and once that gives you control and you don't feel like powerless about when you're talking about contracts, or powerless when you're in a room talking about a deal, it's a hugely powerful thing when your shit and someone tries to wag their tail. It really is.
Well, I think when people hear this podcast, they're probably going to want to turn to some resources. So let me spout out a few resources for artists. Ari Herstand has a good book on the new music business. Indiepreneur is a great organization that's always giving just information. ASCAP has a good email list that goes out, I think every day. ASCAP Daily Brief, that just sends out a bunch of good blog posts. And then there's a one called Beats and Bytes from New Agency, Jesse Kirschbaum's New Agency. So those are some resources. There's resources out there. Maybe we should have a better page on our site that just kind of like combines that and just kind of shows people.
Yeah, it gives people all of those links. There's a great one that Imogen Heap made called The Life of the Song. I don't know if you've ever seen that, where it takes a song and then it shows you what all the rights and where it all went and where all the money went from one song.
I've heard of that. Cool, where you say that's a book?
No, it's a website. It's called I think it's called Life of a Song. Life of the Song.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Payne, did you have any more questions, or are we wrapping up?
Oh well, yeah. Let's wrap up. But I'm about 22 years late. But congratulations on the Mercury Award.
Thanks, man.
I think we understated your role as a musician and really focused on your role as a music industry professional. But musically, your band, just Google the band Gomez, Gomez, see what they've done and see that this guest is as equally experienced as a musician on the artist side as he is a industry figure on the business side of the coin. So once again, I just want to thank you for taking your time out. And
no, thank you guys. I'm really grateful.
Thank you. I'm all for artists getting paid more. It's always great to have somebody from with your perspective, because I don't always look at it through the lens of a band member. I never worked with a band. I never look at it through the lens of a songwriter. Like I said before, it didn't really work with like just solo songwriters. So it's important to have these perspectives, because I'm always on artists' heads telling them, look, there's money out there. You can get money through live streaming. You can get sponsorships. You can get, there's all these different revenue streams. That's kind of where I always am. But I'm all for getting artists paid more wherever it comes from.
I completely agree with you. I mean, that's 90% of what I do too. But I'm here to try and describe the whole world of music, right? There's every kind of artist you can imagine. There's people in choirs with 50 people. There's people playing first violin in an orchestra. There is a lot of people in our industry who are not you or I.
Right.
And we just have to find a way of keeping that in our it's very it's very easy to just kind of be about you and making money for me and doing which we all have to put food on the table, we all have to pay our rent, but musicians don't have to think that we're not a community. They don't need to think that they are just it's just about how do I get on top of the next guy, because we don't have to think like that. If there's enough to go around. UMG just turned $1 billion profit in 1 quarter from streaming. Not profit, that's a lie. They grossed $1 billion in 1 quarter from streaming. But there is money, Right. So let's not fool ourselves that things couldn't be better for everybody.
For sure. Oh, Payne, you're muted. You want to close this out?
Yeah. So once again, thank you so much, Tom Gray. What are your social media handles for people to follow you?
I'm Mr. Tom Gray on with an A on Twitter. That's pretty much the only place I'm a Northern English gobshite. I just like talking, so Twitter's the perfect place for me.
Nice.
Yeah, I think you're among good company then in that regard. Well, once again, thank you. Shout out to everyone who's watching. Shout out to everyone who's tuning in live. However few of you there may be. Once again, our music mentorship program is www.musicentrepreneurclub.com. Sign up, use code MEC podcast for free access, and we'll catch you on episode number 45. Peace.
Peace.
Cheers.